technology's come a long way since I was in school, a long, long time ago, with new advancements making it a whole lot easier to cheat on assignments and get away with it. You may have heard about the latest disruptor, ChatGPT, an artificially intelligent bot, which can write pretty much anything you ask it to, from a poem to a term paper. And unlike old-fashioned plagiarism, which schools have long had tools to screen for, educators are still grappling with how to detect AI-written text. Joining me to discuss are John Fitzgibbon, an associate director at Boston College's Center for Digital Innovation and Learning, and Laura Meckler, national education reporter for the Washington Post. Thank you both for being here. Laura, how concerned are people in the academy about this new technology and the effects it might have?
Well, I think there are two groups of people. There are the people who are concerned, or in some cases very concerned, and then there are the people who haven't thought about it yet. I mean, I think that this is just a widespread concern among professors, also to some extent among K-12 teachers, high school teachers, but really particularly in colleges that, this is just sort of another thing they have to think about and figure out how to get around, some are thinking about it more creatively, some are thinking about it more defensively, but there is an awful lot of thinking about what do we do about this, incredibly new potential to cheat, because I think any of us who have played around with this tool see how the responses and the results feel very human.
Can you just give a brief elaboration of that point you just raised before we get to John? What's it like to use this tool? How easy is it? I think for a lot of people who maybe haven't even looked at it, it might sound like, it's daunting, intimidating, there's a high barrier to entry. So what is it like?
It is like once you find the website, okay, so maybe that's the hardest part, but it's not that hard. Once you find the website, it's so easy to use. It's like there's a dialog box. Like imagine you're texting with someone, but it's on your computer. There's a little box there, and you type something in. You type a question, or you type a prompt. You can say, could you write something wacky, like write a poem to celebrate my mother's birthday, she likes cats. Or you can say, write a 5-paragraph essay about the origins of the American Revolution. And either way, it will do it. And is it great? No. Like, is it like something that's going to get you into Harvard? No. But is it plausible? Yes, absolutely. I was stunned.
John Fitzgibbon, is the quality that Lauren just touched on, Laura, is it going to improve quickly? Because I think of these things and I'm not a technological expert, but I think of technology once the existing framework is in place as getting much better very, very fast. So soon, will it be able to get you into Harvard?
As I understand it, this is the version 3, and they're going to launch a version 4 in the next couple of months, and they're getting all these many billions from Microsoft. So I'm going to guess and say it's going to get an awful lot better because it's going to have more processing power, more information to process. But so I teach at BC myself and consult with many faculty, and I've never seen a technology raise up so quickly in people's awareness. Never seen it before. And literally last night, I raised it with my own class teaching populism, and half the students hadn't heard of it, and the other half had heard of it. But what really struck me about it was that students are really interested in it, and really interested in what I had to say about it. As in, many of them used the tool, they've experienced it, they saw the text that it generated, but they're like, well, what do I do with this? Is this good? Is this bad? Or whatever. And so I put in a midterm question that I used last year. That was a terrible question that gave a very good answer to it. And so I talked that answer through with students and said, here's why this is a good answer, but also here's why this is a bad answer. And I asked them what grade they would give it. And that led to an excellent conversation about what I'm looking for from an essay. And there were some key things that were missing from it. It wasn't referenced. There was no examples. It missed out on all the main themes of the course that I had talked about. So I said, well, it failed because there was no referencing. So it's plagiarism. But there was no argumentation there, so it's just a C. But the students had all given an A because they were blinded by how well it was written. So it led to a great conversation about what exactly I'm looking for. So and all the faculty I consult with and I'm talking to about it is that this is a great opportunity for students to use it and give them the answers and say, here's what's good about it, here's what's bad about it. And the students are really excited to use it as a study aid to get a good start, as a summary tool, because a lot of them are complaining about Google and how using a Google search for things has become pretty difficult right now and it's clunky and everything like that. So they're seeing this as just another tool in their toolbox, and they're looking to faculty and looking to teachers to say, how can I use this? How can this help my learning? How can this help me learn more for your course?
Tell me if I'm wrong here, but as you describe that potential use, and then Laura, I want to come back to you to hear a little more about creative uses that other people are coming up with. But John, as you describe that potential use, it sounds to me like something that will be fruitful only for as long as this thing remains at the current level it's at, or maybe doesn't get a whole lot better. What happens, or how might you use it when this technology or similar technology, successor technology, is able to write a paper that does do the things you said it doesn't do right now, and maybe would be exemplary and get a student an A if they actually wrote it themselves?
Well, we think about a different format. So that's one of the things I've been thinking about, and quite honestly, been very lazy in my midterms and finals. And I should have been thinking, I'll change it next semester, but it's just right there and set up. So what I did recently was I went to a new data visualization lab at Boston College, and I talked to the Kate who works there, and I said, right, I want to give my students a data visualization assignment. This is a really important skill to have. I think it really follows really well with a political science course. And so I'm going to have the students go through all the case studies that we do, and we're going to learn how to code it. We're going to learn how to present it in data visually, and we're going to learn how to tell a story with digital tools, images, charts, all that kind of stuff. So it forces us to rethink what we're looking for in students. And I think this is a huge opportunity, especially in the liberal arts and the social sciences, to rethink what we're challenging students with. And instead of giving them a midterm or a final where they write an essay and that's it, it's all kind of done with, you get this great opportunity to think about, what can I do? What kind of potential is there to the students to be creative, to do really engaging, amazing work with all these wonderful tools that we have? But that's really hard to do. And it works for 35 students in my course when I have the skill set to hopefully be able to guide through that. But if you have 400 students, Introduction to Macroeconomics, that's a different task. But faculty are really going to have to think really hard about how they're going to challenge students and task them with doing things in this day and age. And it's going to involve things like judgment, discernment, giving them really difficult problems that they've got to figure out. And that's hard work.
Hard work for the students and hard work for the instructors pedagogically. Laura Meckler, when you talked about people using this creatively, John's given a couple examples there, but are there any other ones that you've run into that you think are maybe heartening by those of us who are a little spooked, or for those of us who are spooked by this sort of technology?
Well, I think there are sort of a couple ways that I've heard people talk about this. There is the coming up with more creative questions so that the bot can't answer it. So how did you describe your thinking as you arrived at this answer? So that sort of a thing, something that really requires you to put yourself into it. That makes it a little bit more difficult for a bot to answer those kinds of questions. And just the higher level reasoning, like it doesn't do very well when you start asking it to be more sophisticated. It does really well when you're asking for basic information, basic factual information, lists of things. But if you're asking for deeper analysis, that's when it starts getting caught. Now, to your point earlier, that may change over time as it gets better and better. But the more sophisticated the question, the harder it is for them to answer it. The other thing that I've heard is the less well, and I'll just add one other point, which is I've heard some teachers talk about the idea, that professors talk about the idea that, rather than just like deny it and fight it, acknowledge it's there. Why don't you use it and make that your starting point for an essay? So maybe the assignment is, show me what you got from ChatGPT, and now show me what you did to make this deeper, better.
Interesting.
And that's a really important point, Laura, because it's in the elements where ChatGPT is missing this. To your point, Adam, about like, it's good, it's all right. So what's missing there? Is it that it doesn't have references? If it doesn't have that personal argument, that becomes a great teaching point. And like what I've seen what a lot of faculty are starting to do is they're asking the students, put this question to ChatGPT and then keep asking it questions, because that's how it works. You keep asking it questions and refines it till you get an answer you're happy with and you believe is a really good answer, and tell me why. And those are all examples of that thing we always hear about, critical thinking. And that's what this is really testing. Sorry, go ahead, Laura.
The other response you get from some is more of a defensive, how do I fight this response?
Yeah, that's my first question. That's my instinct.
So some would say things like, you have to write your answers by hand in class. So if you're doing an in-class assignment with a blue book, then you're not going to be able to use ChatGPT. So that being said, there's also some technology solutions that are out there. There are companies like Turnitin, which is already a company out there that detects plagiarism, that is working on new techniques to detect the use of artificial intelligence. Even OpenAI, the company that makes ChatGPT, is talking about trying to create like watermarks and things that other ways to defeat it so that you can, so it won't be misused. So there are also technology answers that are floating around about that. One of the more interesting ways to fight it that I found interesting when I put into the ChatGPT when I was writing a story about this, I put in, how do we prevent using your tool for to cheat? And one of the suggestions from ChatGPT that came back was emphasize a ethical guidelines and a spirit of conforming with expectations and an honor code. And if you have a culture of trust, students won't cheat. So obviously that would be the best solution.
I kind of love that. I will confess, I imagine the computer, sizzling and steam coming out. And so unfortunately, we have to leave it there. I've got about 20 more questions for each of you. Laura Meckler, John Fitzgibbon, thank you both.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for having me.